Texas crude oil prices have swung up by between 3 and 7%. And with the Russian war on Ukraine likely to continue to spike those prices, it seems like a huge missed opportunity to not get more of that money in workers' pockets, especially when workers are strike ready.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
This is a segment that we do a little rapid fire announcements about what happened in the labor movement in the South last week. We pull this from Jonah Furman's newsletter, Who Gets the Bird? You can read the full newsletter where he talks about everything that happened in the U.S. labor movement. WhoGetsTheBird.substack.com is where you can find that. So we're going to go ahead and get to last week in Southern labor. In new organizing, 343 more Starbucks workers at 14 stores have officially filed for NLRB elections with Workers United, including 5 stores in the South in Farmville, Springfield, and Richmond, Virginia, and Jacksonville and Hialeah, Florida. 35 journalists at the Charlotte, North Carolina Observer are organizing with the Washington Baltimore News Guild. 40 guards in New Orleans are joining UGSO. SPFPA is raiding a unit of 6 guards at L'Enfant Plaza in D.C., who are currently represented by LEOSU. 200 airline mechanics for Lufthansa in Aguadillo, Puerto Rico, will vote on joining the Machinists after a decision from the National Mediation Board. They'll have nearly 2 months to vote, and we'll know the results on May the 5th. Over 1,000 Hershey workers in Stuart Strath, Virginia are voting on unionizing this week, as Michael Sonato at The Guardian and More Perfect Union are covering. We'll know the results in late March. And apparently this is just a big show for Jacob correcting the record on things he misspoke about, because I could have sworn that the workers at Hershey pulled the petition because of the anti-union campaign, but apparently not. Apparently, I totally made that up, and so I apologize to everybody who I misled about that. But I could have sworn that I saw that, but apparently not, because I looked all over. I spent like 20 minutes yesterday looking for it, and I could not find anything about them pulling the petition. So the vote's still on, and we're going to know the results later this month. There's a new front opening in the independent contractor debate, and it's not port truckers or Uber drivers, but Atlanta opera hair and makeup workers who are vying to join IATSE, with management claiming they're not really employees. Now it's in the NLRB's hands.
That's been one of the major trends of misclassifying folks as independent contractors, so that would definitely be interesting to see how it pans out.
Yep. That is, definitely looking forward to seeing. Hopefully that is resolved in favor of the workers. In strikes and bargaining, there are lots of updates on oil workers. The Steelworkers and the Marathon-led table of big oil employers have announced a tentative agreement covering 30,000 refinery workers about a month after the last contract expired. According to Reuters, the deal is for a 12% raise over 4 years, which is not an improvement from the last agreement that they had, which was 9% over 3 years. Do you see how that's not any better? You get 12% over 4 years versus 9% over 3 years. That's the same, just over a longer contract. So it's going to be interesting to see what the rest of that contract has, if it's any better at all. In just the past 4 weeks since their contract expired, Texas crude oil prices have swung up by between 3 and 7%. And with the Russian war on Ukraine likely to continue to spike those prices, plus a newfound patriotic interest in onshoring oil production, it seems like a huge missed opportunity to not get more of that money in workers' pockets, especially when workers are strike ready. But then again, this is an industry that has been openly talking about busting its unions and has taken on high-profile lockout actions against hundreds of workers from Minnesota to Texas over the past year. Speaking of which, Exxon workers in Beaumont, Texas will go back to work next week after 10 months, with Steelworkers Local 13243, who voted 60% by a vote of 60% to accept the deal that, as far as Jonah can tell, is a loss on the seniority and scheduling issue that was part of the core of the conflict that sparked in May. Another huge energy company, Kinder Morgan, is apparently planning on locking out its 160 Steelworkers members at a terminal in Pasadena, Texas, over a rejected contract due to overtime and scheduling concerns, which is to say the energy industry continues to be aggressively organizing against its workers. 450 members of Steelworkers Local 40 in Huntington, West Virginia, still have no deal on the table with special metals after 150 days on strike. A few weeks after 15,000 teachers in Puerto Rico struck for a pay increase after 13 years of no raises to their base pay of $1,750 a month, after a few days, the governor announced a temporary $1,000 monthly increase starting in July, but the teachers have kept on marching. Other public workers have joined in the protest to challenge low salaries in other jobs, including firefighters who haven't seen a raise in over 2 decades. The teachers plan to strike intermittently and held a national strike last week as they challenged sweeping austerity measures on the island, from reductions in services to cuts in pensions. In political fights, the Charlottesville, Virginia City Council rejected a collective bargaining ordinance being pushed by transit workers as workers go jurisdiction by jurisdiction to win collective bargaining rights in Virginia. Joe Biden named his new Supreme Court nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and national union leaders are happy about it. Though, to be fair, I think we would have seen pretty similar statements no matter the nominee, as long as it wasn't J. Michelle Childs. AFGE is pushing on the Biden administration to move the Department of Homeland Security to fulfill its promise of extending collective bargaining rights to TSA agents. And so that's what happened last week in Southern Labor. If you want to see what happened in the rest of U.S. labor, you can read Jonah Furman's newsletter, whogetsthebird.substack.com. Could not recommend it more.
Absolutely. And worth mentioning, those outside the South, and you would see this if you subscribe to Jonah's newsletter, is that teachers and the support staff of both Minneapolis and St. Paul school districts up there in Minnesota, they have taken a strike vote. They are ready to strike if they cannot secure a contract, and I believe the deadline is at the end of this upcoming week. So by next weekend, we'll see if we have teachers on strike up in Minnesota. And that will be huge. I mean, these are two very major school districts. So I know there have not been as many labor battles with teachers, at least in the continental United States, it seems. But, you mentioning Puerto Rico definitely brought that to my mind. And there's been a tremendous amount of organizing efforts in Puerto Rico. And just a reminder, folks, they are a colony of the United States Empire. Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, we ought to consider them Southerners.
Absolutely. They are part of our district in AFGE. So you just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.